Hello, and welcome. Thank you for choosing to spend this time here, in this quiet space we're creating together. Before we begin our descent into the deep ocean, let's take a few moments to settle in, to arrive fully in this present moment, to prepare ourselves for the journey ahead. Wherever you are right now, lying in bed, sitting in a comfortable chair, resting on a couch, allow yourself to find a position that feels supportive and comfortable. You don't need to be perfectly still. In fact, the ocean is never perfectly still, even at great depths. There's always subtle movement, gentle currents, the slow drift of water responding to forces both near and far. You can allow yourself that same gentle movement, adjusting as needed, finding your comfort. Take a moment to notice your breathing. You don't need to change it, just notice it. The rise and fall of your chest or belly. The cool air moving in through your nose or mouth. The slightly warmer air flowing out. This breath has been with you since your first moment of life, and it will be with you until your last. It's perhaps the most faithful companion you have, always present, always working on your behalf, requiring nothing from you but permission to continue. The fact that you're here, listening to this, tells me something about you. Perhaps you've been finding it difficult to quiet your mind lately. Perhaps sleep has been elusive, or restless, or unsatisfying. Perhaps you've been carrying stress, worry, or anxiety that follows you even into the night. Perhaps you simply enjoy the peace that comes from deep relaxation and want to invite more of it into your life. Whatever brought you here is valid and welcome. There's no wrong reason to seek peace. There's no weakness in acknowledging that your mind needs help settling down. In our modern world, with its constant stimulation, its endless demands for attention, its barrage of information and urgency, the ability to simply be quiet has become rare and precious. You're not failing by struggling to find this quietness. You're simply human, living in times that don't naturally support the rest your nervous system needs. Tonight, we're going to do something different. We're not going to try to force relaxation. We're not going to demand that your mind empty itself of thoughts. Instead, we're going to give your mind something to think about, something vast, something peaceful, something that naturally draws attention downward and inward. We're going to think about the deep ocean. Why the ocean? Why does water, particularly deep water, have such a calming effect on the human mind? This isn't just poetic imagination or wishful thinking. There are real, measurable reasons why contemplating the ocean soothes our nervous system, reasons rooted in biology, psychology, and the deep history of life on Earth. But before we explore those reasons, I want you to know that you don't need to concentrate hard on what I'm saying. You don't need to memorize facts or worry about understanding everything. This isn't a test. There's nothing you need to prove, nothing you need to accomplish. The words are here simply to give your conscious mind something gentle to attend to while your deeper self does what it knows how to do, relax, release, and eventually drift into sleep. If your mind wanders, that's perfectly fine. If you miss something I say because you're drifting, that's actually wonderful. It means the process is working. If you fall asleep before we finish, that's exactly the point. There's no need to stay alert, no need to hear every word. The journey matters more than the destination, and if you arrive at sleep somewhere along the way, you've succeeded perfectly. Now, let's begin to imagine water. Not the water you encounter in daily life, not the water from a faucet or a drinking glass, but vast water, ancient water, deep water. The ocean covers about 71% of Earth's surface. That's roughly 360 million square kilometers of water, containing about 1.3 billion cubic kilometers of liquid. These numbers are too large to really comprehend, which is part of their power. The ocean exists at a scale that dwarfs human concerns. But the ocean isn't just large in space. It's also deep in time. The oceans have existed for approximately 4 billion years, nearly as long as Earth itself has existed. Think about that for a moment. 4 billion years of water, of waves, of tides, of currents. 4 billion years of the same basic substance, cycling and moving and existing in its various forms. The water in the ocean today is, in some sense, the same water that existed when Earth was young, when the only life was single-celled organisms, when the continents were arranged in configurations we wouldn't recognize. This temporal vastness is one source of the ocean's calming power. When we contemplate something that has existed for billions of years and will likely exist for billions more, our own problems, the worries that seemed so large a moment ago, naturally shrink to their proper scale. The job stress, the relationship difficulty, the financial concern, the health worry, these are real, they matter, but they're also temporary, small ripples on a surface that extends farther than we can see. You might notice your body beginning to relax already. This is natural. The very act of focusing on something calming creates a physiological response. Your heart rate may be slowing slightly. Your breathing may be deepening. The small muscles around your eyes, your jaw, your forehead, these might be releasing tension you didn't even know you were holding. Let this happen. Don't force it, but don't resist it either. Your body knows how to relax. It's done this thousands of times before. You just need to give it permission, create the conditions, and then step back and let your body's natural wisdom take over. The ocean has been a source of fascination, peace, and inspiration for humans throughout our existence. Ancient civilizations settled near coastlines. They built their cities and temples within sight and sound of the sea. They painted ocean scenes on their pottery, carved ships and sea creatures into their monuments, wove ocean imagery into their myths and stories. This wasn't accidental. There's something in the human psyche that resonates with the ocean, something that recognizes it as important, as meaningful, as worthy of attention and reverence. Modern research has given us some insight into why this is. Studies have shown that people report feeling calmer, more relaxed, and more creative when near water. The sight of the ocean, the sound of waves, even just looking at images of the sea, all of these have measurable effects on our nervous system. Heart rate decreases. Breathing slows and deepens. The production of stress hormones like cortisol drops. Meanwhile, the brain shifts into a different mode of functioning, one associated with wakeful relaxation, openness, and creative insight. This response isn't learned. It appears to be innate, hardwired into us by millions of years of evolution. Our ancestors who lived near water sources had survival advantages. Water meant life, drinking water, food from fishing, transportation, trade. Our brains evolved to recognize water as important, as desirable, as safe. When we see or hear or think about water, ancient circuits in our brain light up with recognition and approval. We're home. We're safe. We can rest. Tonight, we're going to journey into a particular kind of water, not the surface waters where light penetrates, where life is abundant and active, but the deep waters, the dark waters, the quiet waters that exist beneath all that activity. The deep ocean is one of Earth's most stable, most peaceful, most unchanging environments. While the surface can be stirred by storms, heated by the sun, affected by weather and seasons and the chaos of the upper world, the deep remains constant. Constant temperature, constant pressure, constant darkness, constant silence. This constancy, this deep stability, is profoundly soothing to contemplate. In our lives, we're surrounded by change, by unpredictability, by variations we can't control. But in imagining the deep ocean, we can visit a place where constancy reigns, where the conditions today are the same as they were 1,000 years ago and will be the same 1,000 years from now. As we prepare to begin our descent, I want to remind you one more time, there's nothing you need to do. You don't need to try hard to visualize. You don't need to concentrate. You don't need to stay awake to hear everything. The words will continue whether you're actively listening or not, and that's perfectly fine. Think of these words as a gentle current, carrying you along. You don't need to swim. You don't need to navigate. You can simply allow yourself to be carried, trusting the current, releasing the need to control where you're going or how fast you get there. Your only task, if it can even be called a task, is to be here. To rest. To allow. To receive. Everything else will take care of itself. The ocean is waiting for us, patient and vast. It's been waiting for billions of years. It can wait a few more moments while you settle completely, while you let go of the last bits of tension, while you release your grip on the day that's past and the day that's coming. None of that matters right now. Right now, there's only this, your body resting comfortably, your breath flowing naturally, and the ocean, deep and dark and eternally calm, ready to receive you. Let's begin. Close your eyes now, and let yourself drift downward with me, away from the surface world and into the realm where light begins to fade. We're descending together into the deep ocean, that vast, quiet cathedral of water that covers more than 70% of our planet. And as we sink slowly through the blue, something remarkable begins to happen to your mind. The deep ocean calms us in ways that few other environments can, and this isn't merely poetic imagination. There's a profound neurological truth woven into the relationship between human consciousness and these ancient waters. Our brains, evolved over millions of years, carry an imprint of the sea within them. The very chemistry of our thoughts mirrors the salt content of primordial oceans where life first stirred. When we contemplate the deep, we're gazing into a mirror that reflects something fundamental about our own nature. Let's descend further now, past the sun-dappled shallows. Notice how the light begins to shift, how the bright blues deepen into something richer, more mysterious. The ocean reveals itself in layers, each zone a distinct world with its own rhythm and character. We're entering what marine scientists call the epipelagic zone, the sunlight zone, which extends from the surface down to about 200 meters. Here, 90% of all marine life exists, sustained by the sun's energy filtering through the water. But it's not the abundance of life that calms us. It's the quality of the environment itself. Water absorbs sound differently than air. High-frequency sounds, the sharp, jarring noises that trigger our stress responses, dissipate quickly in water. What remains are low, resonant frequencies that travel for miles. Whale songs. The deep thrum of distant movement. These bass notes correspond to the same frequencies that appear in meditation music in white noise machines. Without knowing why, we've been recreating the sonic signature of the deep ocean in our attempts to find peace. The pressure increases as we descend. With every 10 meters of depth, the pressure increases by approximately 1 atmosphere. By the time we reach 100 meters, the pressure has increased tenfold. This might sound threatening, but there's something profound about pressure when we consider it metaphorically. The ocean doesn't resist its own pressure. It exists in perfect equilibrium with it. Every organism that lives here is adapted to its depth, neither crushed by it nor fighting against it. This acceptance, this state of being perfectly suited to one's environment, mirrors the psychological state we seek in meditation and sleep. We're passing through 200 meters now, crossing an invisible boundary into the mesopelagic zone, the twilight zone of the ocean. This is where the blue begins to deepen into twilight, where the sun's rays become dim and scattered. Only about 1% of surface light penetrates this far. The fish here have larger eyes, adapted to gather every available photon. Some have evolved bioluminescence, creating their own light in the gathering darkness. This dimming of light serves a neurological purpose in our own minds. The human brain produces a hormone called melatonin when exposed to darkness. This chemical messenger, synthesized in our pineal gland, orchestrates our sleep-wake cycle. As we imagine descending into the ocean's dimming light, our minds begin to mirror this transition. The reduction in light signals to our ancient brain structures that rest is approaching. This is why so many people find ocean videos, with their deep blues and greens, conducive to sleep. We're tapping into a biological response millions of years old. At 300 meters deep, we're in a realm where most humans never venture. The water temperature has dropped significantly. While surface waters might be warm, tropical even, down here the temperature hovers around 10 degrees Celsius. Cold, but not unbearably so. This coolness serves another calming function. Human sleep quality improves when our core body temperature drops slightly. We sleep best in cool rooms, our bodies naturally lowering their temperature as part of the sleep process. The coolness of the deep ocean echoes this physiological need. Descending through 400 meters, 500, 600. The darkness is nearly complete now. We rely on imagination rather than sight. This sensory deprivation isn't frightening in this context. It's liberating. In our daily lives, we're bombarded with visual stimuli. The average person processes thousands of images per day, each one demanding attention, interpretation, emotional response. Our visual cortex, the part of our brain that processes sight, consumes enormous amounts of energy. But here, in the deep ocean darkness, there's nothing to see. The visual cortex can finally rest. This is one reason why people often close their eyes or dim lights when trying to calm their minds. We're recreating the peaceful darkness of the deep. We're entering the bathypelagic zone now, the midnight zone, which extends from 1,000 meters to 4,000 meters deep. This is the largest habitat on Earth by volume, yet it remains largely unexplored. More humans have walked on the moon than have visited the deepest parts of our own ocean. There's something humbling about this, something that shrinks our worries to their proper scale. The problems that seem so large on the surface, the anxieties that keep us awake, they seem smaller when we consider them against the vast, indifferent peace of these depths. The organisms here exist in a state of extremely low energy consumption. Food is scarce in the deep ocean, drifting down slowly from the sunlit zones above in what scientists call marine snow. Tiny particles of organic matter, dead plankton, bits of larger animals, all tumbling slowly downward like an endless, gentle snowfall. The creatures here have adapted to this scarcity by slowing their metabolisms dramatically. They move little. They wait. They exist in a state of profound patience. This patience, this slowed metabolism, mirrors what happens in our own bodies during deep sleep. Our heart rate slows. Our breathing deepens and becomes regular. Our metabolism decreases. We enter a state of low energy consumption and high restoration. The deep ocean organisms have perfected this balance, existing in a near constant state of what we might call meditation. At 1,500 meters, the pressure is crushing by surface standards, about 150 times atmospheric pressure. Yet life persists. Sperm whales dive to these depths, their bodies adapted to withstand pressures that would instantly kill an unprepared human. Their lungs collapse under the pressure, preventing nitrogen absorption that causes the bends in divers. Their hearts slow to just a few beats per minute during these deep dives. They exist in a state of suspended animation, calm and focused, hunting for giant squid in the darkness. There's a parallel here to the way our own consciousness shifts during deep relaxation. Our awareness narrows. We become less reactive to external stimuli. Our heart rate slows. We enter what neuroscientists call a hypnagogic state, the transitional state between wakefulness and sleep. In this state, the prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain responsible for logic and worry, becomes less active. Meanwhile, other parts of our brain, those associated with imagery and emotion, become more active. We begin to drift, to float, much like an organism suspended in the neutral buoyancy of deep water. The color blue itself holds significance. The ocean appears blue because water absorbs colors in the red part of the light spectrum more efficiently than colors in the blue part. The deeper you go, the more exclusively blue the environment becomes. Blue light has a wavelength of approximately 450 to 495 nanometers. Research has shown that this particular wavelength affects our circadian rhythms differently than other colors. While bright blue light in the evening can disrupt sleep, the deep, muted blues of the ocean depths have the opposite effect. They signal depth, quietness, distance from the stimulating surface world. At 2,000 meters deep, we're truly in an alien realm. The water here is centuries old. A single drop of water at this depth might have been away from the surface for 1,000 years, slowly circulating through global ocean currents. These currents, called thermohaline circulation, are driven by differences in water density caused by variations in temperature and salinity. They move slowly, majestically, like a planetary heartbeat. Water sinks in the cold regions near the poles, travels along the ocean floor through the Great Basins, and gradually rises again in distant parts of the world. This slow circulation mirrors the way thoughts move through a relaxed mind. Not the quick, anxious jumping from worry to worry, but the slow, meandering flow of peaceful contemplation. One thought arises, exists for a time, then slowly dissipates, replaced by another. No urgency. No agenda. Just the natural flow of consciousness, like deep ocean currents flowing through the darkness. The fish at these depths have evolved remarkable adaptations. Many are black, absorbing what little light exists. Some have photophores, light-producing organs that create bioluminescent patterns used for communication, hunting, or camouflage. The anglerfish dangles a bioluminescent lure, a tiny beacon in the vast darkness. These lights aren't bright by surface standards. They're gentle glimmers, soft glows, just enough light to serve their purpose and no more. There's an efficiency here, an economy of energy that speaks to a fundamental wisdom. Use only what you need. Shine only as brightly as necessary. The rest is silence and darkness and peace. Our own minds benefit from this principle. So much of our anxiety comes from overexertion, from trying too hard, from shining too brightly for too long. We exhaust ourselves with constant performance, constant vigilance, constant engagement. But here in the deep ocean metaphor, we can practice the wisdom of the anglerfish. A small light in darkness is enough. We don't need to illuminate everything. We can let most of our awareness rest in peaceful darkness, with just a small point of consciousness remaining, gentle and calm. At 3,000 meters, we're near the lower boundary of the midnight zone. The pressure here is tremendous, approximately 300 times atmospheric pressure. Yet there's no sense of being crushed because the pressure is equal in all directions. The water presses from every side simultaneously, creating a state of equilibrium. Nothing is stretched or compressed. Everything simply is. This equilibrium is what we seek in our psychological lives. We want the various pressures we face, work, relationships, responsibilities, fears, to be in balance. When one pressure becomes too great, we feel stretched, distorted, uncomfortable. But when all things are in equilibrium, even significant pressures become bearable. The deep ocean teaches us that pressure itself isn't the problem. It's imbalance that causes suffering. We're descending now into the abyssopelagic zone, the abyssal zone, which extends from 4,000 meters to 6,000 meters deep. The abyssal plains are the flattest places on Earth. While the surface world is mountainous and varied, down here the seafloor spreads out in vast, level expanses. Sediment has been accumulating for millions of years, slowly filling in the irregularities, creating these plains of incredible smoothness. There's something profoundly calming about flatness, about the absence of peaks and valleys. Our lives are full of ups and downs, emotional variations, the constant cycling between excited highs and disappointed lows. But here on the abyssal plains, there are no peaks to climb, no valleys to fear falling into. Just vast, level peace. This is the state mystics describe when they speak of equanimity, the even-minded state where joy and sorrow, pleasure and pain, are met with the same calm acceptance. The organisms of the abyssal zone include sea cucumbers that slowly crawl across the sediment, filtering nutrients from the mud. Brittle stars wave their arms in the current. Giant isopods, looking like enormous pill bugs, scavenge whatever organic matter drifts down from above. All of these creatures move slowly, deliberately, with no wasted motion. There are no predators chasing them at high speed, no need for quick reactions. Life here happens at a pace that would seem impossibly slow to surface-dwelling creatures. A meal might take hours to consume. Movement from one place to another might take days. Our modern lives operate at the opposite extreme. We expect instant responses, immediate gratification, rapid results. We've trained our nervous systems to operate at a pace that's fundamentally unnatural for creatures who evolved over millions of years. When we imagine the slow life of abyssal organisms, we're not just daydreaming. We're giving our nervous systems permission to remember their natural pace, the speed at which human consciousness operated for most of our existence as a species. At 5,000 meters deep, we're truly in one of Earth's most peaceful realms. The water temperature is a constant 2 to 4 degrees Celsius. It has been this temperature for thousands of years. There are no seasons here, no day or night, no weather. The constancy is absolute. For creatures that live here, there are no surprises, no unexpected changes in conditions. Every day is identical to every other day. This might sound boring to our surface-adapted minds, but there's profound peace in predictability. Much of our stress comes from uncertainty, from not knowing what will happen next. We lie awake worrying about futures that may never materialize. We replay past conversations, analyzing what went wrong. But in the deep ocean, there is only now. The past is identical to the present, and the future will be the same. This eternal now is another state that meditation practitioners seek. The complete absorption in the present moment, with no mental energy wasted on past or future. We're approaching 6,000 meters now, about to enter the Hadal Zone, named after Hades, the ancient Greek underworld. This is the deepest realm, found in ocean trenches that plunge even further into the earth. The Mariana Trench, the deepest point in Earth's oceans, reaches down to nearly 11,000 meters. At this depth, the pressure is over 1,000 times atmospheric pressure. More than 1,000 kilograms of force on every square centimeter of surface area. Yet even here, life exists. Amphipods, small crustaceans, thrive in these extreme depths. Snailfish have been filmed at depths of 8,000 meters, calmly swimming through a realm that seems impossibly hostile. These organisms have cellular adaptations that prevent their proteins from being crushed by pressure. They've evolved special molecules that stabilize their cell membranes. They represent life's ultimate resilience, the ability to find peace even in the most extreme environments. This is perhaps the most important lesson the deep ocean offers to our restless minds. No matter how much pressure we face, no matter how dark things seem, there is a way to adapt, to find equilibrium, to survive and even thrive. The key is acceptance rather than resistance. The deep-sea organisms don't fight the pressure. They've incorporated it into their very biology. They've made peace with their environment. The Hadal trenches are tectonic features, places where one plate of Earth's crust slides beneath another in a process called subduction. The ocean floor is literally being pulled down into the Earth's mantle, recycled and renewed. Even the permanent-seeming structures of geology are temporary. Everything is in motion, everything changes, though on timescales far longer than human consciousness can easily grasp. This geological perspective offers another form of peace. The problems that seem so permanent, so insurmountable in our lives, are temporary when viewed against the timescale of Earth's processes. The ocean trench that exists today will be gone in a few million years. The continents will have shifted. The ocean basins will have changed shape. And our individual worries, the anxieties keeping us awake tonight, are even more ephemeral than these vast geological features. They will pass. Everything passes. Let's rise now, slowly ascending back through the zones. We drift upward through the Hadal zone, leaving behind the deepest trenches. The pressure eases gradually as we ascend, though it remains immense by surface standards. Up through the abyssal plains, that vast flatness we visited earlier. The sediment beneath us has stories written in its layers, each stratum representing a different epoch. Ash from ancient volcanic eruptions. Skeletons of microscopic organisms that lived and died millions of years ago. The slow rain of marine snow continuing its endless accumulation. The geological record tells us that Earth's oceans have existed for at least 4 billion years. For nearly the entire history of our planet, the oceans have been here, patient and vast. Continents have come and gone. Mountain ranges have risen and eroded away. Ice ages have frozen and thawed. Through all of this, the deep ocean has remained, unchanged in its essential nature. This permanence, this stability, is deeply comforting to contemplate. While everything in our individual lives feels uncertain and temporary, the ocean endures. We rise through the midnight zone, where bioluminescent creatures create their small lights in the darkness. There's something magical about bioluminescence, this ability of living creatures to generate their own light through chemical reactions. No heat is produced, unlike the light from fire or electric bulbs. It's called cold light, and it's remarkably efficient. Nearly 100% of the energy is converted to light, with almost no waste. This perfect efficiency exists throughout nature, particularly in the ocean, where energy conservation is essential for survival. Our bodies, too, operate with remarkable efficiency during sleep. The energy we save by reducing consciousness, by slowing our metabolism, is redirected toward healing and restoration. Damaged cells are repaired. Toxins are cleared from the brain. Memories are consolidated and integrated. All of this happens automatically, without our conscious effort, just as bioluminescence occurs without the conscious intention of the creature producing it. We can trust these automatic processes. We don't need to try to sleep. We just need to stop preventing it. Ascending through the twilight zone now, the mesopelagic realm where faint light still penetrates. The fish here often migrate vertically, rising toward the surface at night to feed, then descending back to deeper waters during the day. This is called diel vertical migration, and it's the largest migration on Earth by biomass. Millions upon millions of tons of fish and zooplankton moving up and down through the water column every day in an ancient rhythm. This rhythm echoes our own circadian rhythms, the daily cycle of waking and sleeping that governs our lives. We're built to rise with the light and rest in darkness. For millions of years, humans followed this pattern naturally. Only in recent centuries, with the advent of artificial light, have we begun to disrupt this ancient rhythm. But the rhythm still exists within us, encoded in our genes, waiting for us to acknowledge it. When we honor this natural cycle, sleeping when our bodies signal tiredness, we align ourselves with something fundamental. The water is getting lighter now as we approach the sunlight zone. The temperature rises. The pressure decreases. We can see further through the water. Schools of fish flash silver in the increasing light. Jellyfish pulse gently, their bodies almost entirely water, drifting with the currents. Jellyfish have existed for at least 500 million years, far longer than most other animal groups. They have no brain, no central nervous system in the way we think of it. Yet they survive, they feed, they reproduce. They demonstrate that consciousness, thought, worry, these things aren't essential for existence. Sometimes the absence of a thinking mind is the greatest adaptation of all. As we approach the surface, passing through 100 meters, 50 meters, 20 meters, we might feel a sense of reluctance. The surface world is bright and loud and demanding. It requires so much from us. But we carry the deep ocean with us now. We've visited its depths. We've learned its lessons. The memory of that vast, dark, peaceful realm exists within us, accessible whenever we need it. The relationship between humans and the ocean is ancient and deep. Our earliest ancestors evolved in the ocean. The first life on Earth began in the water, simple single-celled organisms that appeared nearly 4 billion years ago. For billions of years, life existed only in the ocean. The land was barren, lifeless. Then, about 500 million years ago, some adventurous organisms began to emerge onto the land. But they carried the ocean with them. Even now, human bodies are approximately 60% water. Our blood has a salt concentration similar to ancient oceans. The amniotic fluid in which human babies develop is essentially a private ocean, allowing the fetus to develop in an aquatic environment before birth. We begin our individual lives in water, just as life itself began in water. The ocean is not separate from us. It's our origin, our ancestor, our home. This is why the sound of ocean waves is so universally calming. It's not just pleasant noise. It's the sound of our deepest home, the place from which we came. When we hear waves lapping at a shore, we're hearing something our ancestors heard for millions of years. It signals safety, the presence of water, the source of life. Our nervous systems recognize this sound at a level deeper than conscious thought and respond with relaxation. The rhythm of waves is also significant. Ocean waves typically arrive at a frequency of about 8 to 12 waves per minute in normal conditions. This corresponds closely to the breathing rate of a deeply relaxed or sleeping human, roughly 6 to 12 breaths per minute. It's also similar to the frequency of alpha brain waves, the brain wave pattern associated with relaxed, wakeful states, and theta waves, associated with deep relaxation and light sleep. When we match our breathing to the rhythm of imagined waves, we're synchronizing our physiology with these calming patterns. The ocean's influence on Earth's climate creates another form of planetary rhythm. Ocean currents distribute heat around the globe, moderating temperature extremes. The Gulf Stream carries warm water from the tropics toward the North Atlantic, making northern Europe far warmer than it would otherwise be. The Humboldt Current brings cold water up along the coast of South America, creating rich fishing grounds and affecting weather patterns across the Pacific. These great currents flow in predictable patterns, creating a kind of circulatory system for the planet. This planetary circulation reminds us that we're part of a larger system. Our individual concerns, while valid and important to us, are small parts of vast interconnected processes. The air we breathe has been cycled through the ocean. The water we drink has fallen as rain that evaporated from the sea. The oxygen in every breath we take was largely produced by ocean phytoplankton, microscopic photosynthetic organisms that float in the sunlit surface waters. These tiny creatures, invisible to the naked eye, produce roughly 50 to 80% of Earth's oxygen. Every other breath you take was made possible by the ocean. There's profound peace in recognizing our place in these great cycles. We're not separate, isolated beings struggling alone. We're participants in planetary processes that have continued for billions of years and will continue long after we're gone. This perspective doesn't diminish our individual experience. Rather, it contextualizes it, placing our personal dramas within a larger story. The deep ocean is a realm of extremes that have found balance. Extreme pressure balanced by physiological adaptation. Extreme darkness balanced by bioluminescence. Extreme scarcity balanced by slow metabolism and patience. Every extreme has been met, not with resistance, but with acceptance and creative adaptation. This is the wisdom the ocean offers. In our own lives, we face extremes. Extreme stress. Extreme demands on our time and energy. Extreme information overload. Extreme uncertainty about the future. We can respond with resistance, fighting against these conditions, exhausting ourselves in the struggle. Or we can respond like the deep sea organisms, accepting the conditions and adapting creatively. We can slow our pace. We can reduce our energy consumption. We can create small lights in our darkness rather than trying to illuminate everything at once. The process of adaptation takes time. The creatures of the deep ocean evolved over millions of years to suit their environment. We can't instantly transform ourselves, and that's okay. Change happens gradually, like sediment accumulating on the abyssal plains. One grain at a time, one day at a time, one night of rest at a time. Small changes accumulate into profound transformations given enough time. Sleep itself is a form of adaptation. When we sleep, our brains are actively reorganizing neural connections, strengthening useful pathways and pruning away those that are less important. This process, called synaptic homeostasis, helps maintain the brain's efficiency. During waking hours, we form new synapses, new connections between neurons, as we learn and experience the world. But if this continued unchecked, our brains would become overcrowded with connections, losing their efficiency. Sleep allows the brain to downregulate, to weaken or eliminate less important connections while strengthening the ones that matter. It's a process of refinement, of finding the essential patterns and letting go of the noise. This neurological pruning mirrors the way the ocean floor is shaped over time. Currents erode some features and build up others. The essential patterns remain while temporary variations are smoothed away. Our sleeping brains perform a similar function, preserving what's important and releasing what isn't. This is why problems often seem less overwhelming after a good night's sleep. The sleep process has literally reshaped our neural response to the problem, weakening some connections and strengthening others. The deep ocean also teaches us about resilience through its response to disturbances. Occasionally, underwater earthquakes triggered tsunamis that devastate coastal areas. These are terrible disasters for surface-dwelling creatures, including humans. But deep beneath the waves, beyond the reach of these surface disturbances, the ocean continues its peaceful existence. The tsunami passes overhead as a barely noticeable change in pressure. The deep-sea creatures continue their slow, patient lives, unaffected by the chaos above. This isn't to minimize the real suffering that surface disturbances cause. Rather, it's to recognize that within us, there exists a depth that can remain calm even when our surface thoughts are turbulent. Meditation teachers often use the metaphor of the ocean to describe consciousness. The surface can be rough with waves, but the depth remains still. We can learn to identify more with our depth than with our surface, to recognize that we contain both the waves and the stillness. Some of the strangest and most wonderful creatures on Earth live in the deep ocean. The vampire squid, which isn't really a squid or a vampire, but a unique creature that lives at depths between 600 and 900 meters. When threatened, it doesn't flee. Instead, it turns itself inside out, revealing a cape-like web covered in fleshy spines, creating an umbrella that protects its body. It can remain in this defensive posture for several minutes, drifting motionlessly in the water. This patience, this ability to simply wait out a threat without panicking or fleeing, is another form of wisdom. The barrel-eye fish has a transparent head filled with fluid, with tubular eyes that point upward, looking for the silhouettes of prey above. It lives in the twilight zone, in that dim realm where every photon matters. Its entire physiology is optimized for this specific niche, this narrow range of depths and light conditions. It's perfectly adapted to its environment and couldn't survive anywhere else. There's a lesson here about acceptance of our own nature, our own optimal conditions. We don't need to be able to thrive in every environment. We just need to find or create the environment where we belong. The Dumbo octopus, living at depths of 3,000 to 4,000 meters, has fins that look like elephant ears, which it flaps to move through the water. It hovers just above the sea floor, occasionally drifting down to eat worms and crustaceans. It's the deepest living octopus known. Like all octopuses, it has 3 hearts and blue blood. The copper-based hemocyanin in its blood is more efficient than our iron-based hemoglobin at transporting oxygen in cold, low-oxygen conditions. It's yet another example of how life finds solutions to seemingly impossible challenges. These creatures might seem alien to us, but they're following the same fundamental biological principles that govern all life. They need energy, so they eat. They need to reproduce, so they find mates. They need to avoid being eaten, so they've evolved defenses. These basic drives exist in all living things, from deep-sea fish to humans. Recognizing this commonality can be comforting. We're not isolated in our needs and drives. We're part of a grand pattern of life that extends through all environments, from the deepest ocean trenches to the highest mountains. The deep ocean is also a place of incredible age. Some organisms that live in the deep sea are among the longest lived on Earth. Black coral can live for thousands of years, growing slowly in the cold, dark water. Greenland sharks reach sexual maturity at around 150 years of age and can live for 400 years or more. These ancient creatures were alive before nations existed, before most of our recorded history. They've outlived countless human generations, slowly swimming through the dark waters, patient witnesses to the passage of time. This extreme longevity is possible because of the stable conditions in the deep ocean. There are no temperature fluctuations to stress organisms. Food is scarce, but reliably so, leading to slow, steady metabolisms. The darkness is constant. In such a stable environment, organisms can exist in a state of minimal stress for centuries. While humans can't aspire to such longevity, we can learn from the principle. Stress and variability accelerate aging. Stability and calm promote longevity. When we create stability in our lives, when we reduce unnecessary stressors, we're following the wisdom of the deep ocean. The seafloor of the deep ocean holds another wonder: hydrothermal vents. These are places where seawater seeps down through cracks in the ocean floor, is heated by magma beneath, and then bursts back up in superheated plumes. The water can reach temperatures of 400 degrees Celsius, though it doesn't boil because of the extreme pressure. These vents create oases of life in the deep ocean. Bacteria that can use chemicals from the vents as an energy source form the base of a food chain that includes giant tube worms, blind shrimp, and white crabs. These ecosystems exist in complete independence from the sun, powered entirely by Earth's internal heat. The discovery of these vent communities in the late 1970s revolutionized our understanding of life's possibilities. Before this, scientists believed all life ultimately depended on photosynthesis, on the sun's energy. The vent communities prove that life can find energy in many places, that resilience and adaptability can create thriving ecosystems even in the most unlikely locations. This discovery has implications for the search for life elsewhere in the universe. If life can thrive in the sunless depths of Earth's ocean, perhaps it can exist in the ice-covered oceans of Jupiter's moon Europa, or in the liquid methane lakes of Saturn's moon Titan. This expanding understanding of life's possibilities is itself calming. It suggests that the universe is more hospitable to life, more full of potential than we might have imagined. We're not alone in the cosmos, not in our struggles or our existence. Life is tenacious, creative, and diverse beyond our wildest imaginings. As we rest in this understanding, let yourself float in an imagined ocean, suspended between the surface and the depths. You're at a point of neutral buoyancy, neither rising nor sinking. The water holds you perfectly. You don't need to make any effort. You can simply exist, weightless and calm, supported completely by the medium in which you're immersed. This is the gift the deep ocean offers to your restless mind. The permission to simply be, without effort, without striving, without worry. The ocean doesn't try to be the ocean. It simply is. The deep doesn't try to be deep. It simply extends downward, vast and patient and ancient. You don't need to try to be yourself. You simply are. All the effort, all the striving, all the worry about whether you're doing enough or being enough, can be released. You are already complete, already whole, already exactly what you need to be in this moment. Let yourself sink now into sleep, as gently as marine snow drifts downward through dark water. There's no hurry. There's no destination except rest. Every part of your body is heavy and relaxed, supported by the soft surface beneath you. Your breathing is slow and deep, like the slow circulation of deep ocean currents. Your heartbeat is steady and calm, like the rhythm of waves on a distant shore. The deep ocean continues its existence, unchanging and eternal. It was here long before you were born, and it will be here long after you're gone. This might sound melancholy, but it's actually profoundly peaceful. You're part of a story much larger than yourself. Your individual dramas, while important to you, are small ripples on a vast surface. Underneath, in the depths, there is only peace, only the endless patient darkness, only the slow and ancient rhythms of a planet breathing. Sleep now, carried by these dark waters. Let yourself descend into rest as deep and complete as the ocean floor. 6,000 meters down, 11,000 meters, as deep as you need to go to find complete peace. The pressure holds you safely. The darkness enfolds you gently. The silence is absolute and perfect. You are safe. You are held. You are home. The deep ocean welcomes you, now and always, whenever you need to return to this place of peace. It will be waiting, patient and vast, full of wisdom and silence and the promise of rest. Drift now. Sink now. Sleep now. The deep ocean holds you, and all is well. You're resting now in the embrace of deep water, suspended in that place between waking and sleeping. Let's drift together a while longer, exploring more of what the ocean has to teach us about peace and rest and the quieting of the mind. The ocean floor is not the barren wasteland it was once thought to be. Modern exploration has revealed vast underwater mountain ranges called mid-ocean ridges, stretching for over 65,000 kilometers across the seafloor. These ridges mark the places where tectonic plates are pulling apart, where new ocean floor is being created from magma welling up from Earth's mantle. This process, called seafloor spreading, happens at a rate of only a few centimeters per year. Imperceptibly slow by human standards, yet over millions of years, this gradual movement has opened entire ocean basins. There's something deeply calming about this geological patience. Mountains rising at a pace too slow to see. Continents drifting apart so gradually that a human lifetime captures only the tiniest fraction of the journey. When we worry about change, about things happening too fast or too slow in our lives, we can remember the mid-ocean ridges. Transformation doesn't need to be dramatic or visible to be real and profound. Sometimes the most important changes are the ones we can't see happening. The ocean contains mountains taller than Everest, though they rise from the seafloor rather than from land. Mauna Kea in Hawaii, when measured from its base on the ocean floor, is over 10,000 meters tall, significantly taller than Mount Everest's 8,849 meters. But most of Mauna Kea is hidden beneath the waves, invisible from the surface. This reminds us that the most substantial things are often hidden from view. Our own depths, our inner resources, our capacity for resilience, these aren't visible on the surface, but they exist nonetheless, supporting us just as the hidden bulk of Mauna Kea supports its visible peak. In the deepest parts of the ocean live creatures that challenge our understanding of what's possible. The Hadal snailfish, discovered at depths of 8,000 meters, has a body that's almost gelatinous. Its bones are barely calcified, its body composition allowing it to withstand pressures that would instantly crush a surface-dwelling fish. It has small, almost non-functional eyes, having evolved in an environment where sight offers no advantage. Instead, it relies on other senses, on the subtle vibrations in the water, on chemical cues. It reminds us that we don't need every sense, every capability, to thrive. We can specialize, can develop the abilities that serve us in our particular environment, and let go of the rest. The ocean moves in ways both seen and unseen. Surface currents, driven by wind, move relatively quickly. But beneath them, the deep currents move with profound slowness. The Antarctic bottom water, the densest water in the ocean, sinks near Antarctica and creeps along the ocean floor, taking 1,000 years or more to travel from the Antarctic to the North Atlantic. Imagine that. Water molecules beginning a journey that will last 10 human lifetimes, drifting slowly through the darkness, patient beyond human comprehension. These deep currents carry oxygen from the surface to the depths, making life possible even in the deepest trenches. Without this slow circulation, the deep ocean would be lifeless, devoid of the oxygen necessary for animal life. The movement is so slow as to be almost imperceptible, yet it sustains entire ecosystems. This teaches us that we don't need to rush, don't need to move frantically to be effective. Slow, steady, persistent movement accomplishes great things given enough time. Consider the sea sponge, one of the simplest animals on Earth. Sponges have no nervous system, no brain, no muscles, no organs as we typically understand them. They're essentially colonies of cells working together, filtering water to extract nutrients. Some deep-sea sponges can live for over 10,000 years, making them among the oldest living animals on Earth. A sponge alive today might have been filtering water when the first pyramids were being built, when the last ice age was ending, when humanity was just beginning to develop agriculture. These ancient sponges grow incredibly slowly, sometimes adding less than a millimeter per year. Their longevity comes from their simplicity and their lack of stress. They don't move, don't hunt, don't flee from predators. They simply exist, filtering water, extracting what they need, letting everything else pass through. There's a meditation practice in this. Let experiences flow through you. Extract what nourishes you. Let the rest pass without clinging to it. The deep ocean is home to a phenomenon called a brine pool. These are lakes of extremely salty water that form on the ocean floor when salt deposits dissolve into the seawater. Because this water is denser than normal seawater, it pools in depressions, creating an underwater lake within the ocean. These brine pools have distinct shorelines, waves, and even breaking surf, all happening deep beneath the ocean surface. The brine is often toxic to most marine life, yet specialized bacteria thrive at the edges, creating ecosystems based on a completely different chemistry than most life on Earth. These underwater lakes remind us that reality is layered, that there are worlds within worlds, each with their own rules and possibilities. Just as a lake can exist within an ocean, peaceful awareness can exist within a busy mind. You contain multitudes. You're not just your anxious thoughts or your busy to-do list. Within you exists a deep, quiet space, like a brine pool in the dark ocean, distinct, self-contained, operating by its own laws. The ocean floor is covered with traces of life. Bioturbation is the term scientists use for the mixing of sediment by organisms. Worms burrow through the mud. Sea cucumbers plow across the seafloor. Brittle stars leave delicate tracks. All of this activity, happening in slow motion in the darkness, creates a record in the sediment. These traces are sometimes preserved, becoming ichnofossils, trace fossils that show not the organism itself but evidence of its activity. In rocks hundreds of millions of years old, we can see the burrows and tracks of long-extinct creatures, their passage through the world preserved long after the organisms themselves vanished. Your own passage through the world leaves traces too. Not in sediment, but in the lives you touch, the small kindnesses you offer, the moments of connection you create. These traces persist even when you're not actively thinking about them, even when you're asleep. You don't need to be constantly active, constantly achieving, to have an impact. Sometimes simply moving through the world with gentleness and intention is enough. There are places in the ocean where sound behaves in remarkable ways. The Sofar Channel, the sound fixing and ranging channel, is a horizontal layer of water where sound waves travel with minimal energy loss. This occurs at depths where the combination of pressure and temperature creates optimal conditions for sound transmission. Whale songs, produced at the right depth, can travel thousands of kilometers through the Sofar Channel. A whale singing off the coast of California might be heard by another whale near Japan, the sound waves traveling across entire ocean basins. This vast communication network exists independently of human technology, has existed for as long as whales have sung. These songs, some of them lasting 20 minutes or more, are thought to be mating calls, but their full purpose remains mysterious. What we do know is that whales modify their songs over time. The humpback whales in a region will all sing variations of the same song, and this song evolves year by year, new phrases being added, old ones dropped, the melody shifting in a kind of oceanic cultural evolution. The existence of these songs, echoing through the deep Sofar Channel, is profoundly moving. In the darkness, across vast distances, living beings reach out to one another, singing their existence, their loneliness, their desire for connection. We do this too, in our own ways. Every word we speak, every gesture of kindness, every attempt to reach across the distance between minds, these are our songs, traveling through the medium of human connection, hoping to be heard. The deep ocean creates its own weather of sorts. Internal waves occur at the boundaries between water layers of different densities. These waves are much larger than surface waves. Some internal waves can be 100 meters tall, yet they're completely invisible from the surface. They travel slowly through the water column, moving masses of water up and down, creating currents and mixing nutrients. Marine organisms can sense these internal waves and use them for navigation or to find areas where nutrients are being mixed upward. This invisible motion, this hidden dynamic beneath the calm surface, mirrors our internal lives. On the surface, we might appear calm, but internally there are movements, shifts in emotional state, fluctuations in energy and mood. These internal waves are natural and normal. We don't need to fear them or resist them. Like marine organisms, we can learn to sense them, to work with them rather than against them, to find the nutrients and opportunities they bring as they pass through us. The Monterey Canyon, off the coast of California, is a submarine canyon that rivals the Grand Canyon in size. It reaches depths of nearly 4,000 meters and extends over 150 kilometers from the coast into the Pacific. Sediment and organic matter funnel down this canyon in underwater avalanches called turbidity currents. These currents can flow at speeds of up to 100 kilometers per hour, carrying sediment, nutrients, and sometimes entire communities of seafloor organisms down to deeper waters. These turbidity currents, while dramatic by deep-sea standards, are infrequent. Years or even decades might pass between major events. Most of the time, the canyon is quiet, with only the slow settling of fine particles, the patient movement of deep-sea creatures, the steady accumulation of sediment. Life in the canyon is adapted to this rhythm, long periods of stability punctuated by occasional upheaval. This might resonate with human experience. Our lives have periods of calm routine, then sudden changes that sweep through, rearranging everything. The key is to remain flexible, to be like the organisms that can survive both the quiet times and the turbulent events. Deep beneath the ocean surface, time seems to operate differently. Without the daily cycle of light and dark, without seasons, many deep-sea organisms have abandoned circadian rhythms entirely. They don't have a 24-hour cycle of activity and rest. Instead, they operate on event-driven schedules, active when food is available, dormant when it's not. Some deep-sea fish can go months without eating, their metabolism slowing to a crawl, their bodies consuming themselves slowly until the next meal arrives. This freedom from the tyranny of the clock is something we might envy. In modern life, we're slaves to schedules, to deadlines, to the relentless ticking of time. But in sleep, we can escape this temporarily. Sleep has its own rhythms, the 90-minute cycles of REM and non-REM sleep, but these are internal, biological, not imposed from outside. In sleep, we return to a more ancient way of being, governed by our body's own wisdom rather than external demands. The ocean contains structures of breathtaking beauty that no human eye has seen. Coral gardens at depths of 2,000 meters, where cold water corals create intricate structures in complete darkness. These corals grow without light, without the photosynthetic algae that allow shallow water corals to thrive. Instead, they catch food particles from the water, building their calcium carbonate skeletons one tiny polyp at a time, growing perhaps a millimeter per year. A coral structure a meter tall might be thousands of years old, built so slowly that its construction spans human history. These deep-sea corals create habitat for countless other species. Fish shelter among their branches. Invertebrates attach to their structures. Each coral colony is a community, a small oasis of complexity in the relatively simple environment of the deep seafloor. We create similar structures in our own lives, communities, families, networks of friendship and support. These structures are built slowly, through consistent small actions, daily choices to connect, to care, to maintain relationships. Like deep-sea corals, these social structures can persist for generations when they're carefully tended. The ocean holds vast quantities of methane in a strange form called methane hydrate or methane clathrate. This is a lattice of ice that traps methane molecules within it, stable only under the high pressure and low temperature conditions of the deep ocean. Enormous deposits of methane hydrate exist on continental slopes and in permafrost. If these deposits were to destabilize and release their methane, it could have profound effects on Earth's climate, as methane is a potent greenhouse gas. But under normal conditions, the methane stays trapped, held in place by the weight of the ocean above. This is another example of pressure serving a stabilizing function. The same pressure that seems oppressive is actually maintaining equilibrium, keeping potentially destructive forces contained. In our lives, too, some pressure serves a purpose. Responsibilities keep us grounded. Deadlines provide structure. Challenges develop our capabilities. The goal isn't to eliminate all pressure but to find the right amount, the amount that maintains our stability without crushing us. Beneath the ocean floor lies another hidden realm, the deep biosphere. Microorganisms live in the sediments and rocks beneath the seafloor, sometimes kilometers deep into Earth's crust. These microbes survive on chemical energy, metabolizing at rates so slow that a single cell division might take decades or centuries. They exist in a state that's barely distinguishable from suspended animation, yet they're alive, maintaining their cellular structures, slowly processing energy. The discovery of this deep biosphere has expanded our understanding of where life can exist. It's estimated that the biomass of these subseafloor microbes might equal or exceed the biomass of all life in the ocean itself. An entire kingdom of life, invisible, unreachable, operating on timescales we can barely comprehend. This reminds us that life, consciousness, awareness, existence, takes forms more diverse than we can imagine. The way we live, the pace at which we operate, is just one possibility among infinite variations. The ocean's color varies depending on what's dissolved and suspended in it. Clear ocean water appears blue because it absorbs red wavelengths more readily than blue. But water rich in phytoplankton might appear green due to chlorophyll. Water-carrying sediment might appear brown or gray. And sometimes, in certain conditions, bioluminescent organisms create displays of blue-green light that make the water seem to glow. These glowing displays, called bioluminescent blooms, occur when certain dinoflagellates become agitated. Each one-celled organism produces a tiny flash of light when disturbed. When millions or billions of them are present, the water sparkles with every movement. Boats leave glowing trails. Swimming feels like moving through liquid starlight. These displays are unpredictable, magical, temporary. They remind us that beauty doesn't need to be permanent to be real and meaningful. Fleeting moments of wonder have their own value. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch is often misunderstood. It's not a solid island of trash, but rather a vast area where plastic debris accumulates, most of it broken down into tiny particles suspended in the water. These microplastics are nearly invisible, yet they're present in concentrations far higher than in surrounding waters. Marine organisms accidentally consume these plastics, mistaking them for food. The impact of this pollution is still being studied, but it's clear that humanity's presence has reached even the most remote ocean regions. This ecological challenge is sobering, yet it also demonstrates something important. The ocean is not separate from us. Our actions on land have consequences in the deepest seas. The plastic packaging we discard eventually finds its way into ocean currents. But this interconnection works in both directions. When we make choices to reduce waste, to live more sustainably, to consider the impacts of our consumption, we're protecting the ocean and, by extension, ourselves. The health of the ocean and human health are inseparable. But let's return to more peaceful contemplations. The ocean floor is marked with features called abyssal hills, small hills rising from the seafloor, typically only a few hundred meters tall. These hills cover vast areas of the ocean floor and are thought to be the most common landform on Earth, even though they're entirely underwater and unseen. They form at mid-ocean ridges as the seafloor spreads, created by the irregular way magma wells up to create new oceanic crust. These countless hills, nameless and unmapped in their millions, spread across the abyssal plains in every ocean. No human has seen most of them. They exist in eternal darkness, hosting communities of organisms we'll never encounter. There's something humbling and freeing about this. Most of what exists, we'll never know. Most of reality is hidden from us. We can only see and understand a tiny fraction of what is. This means we can let go of the need to know everything, to understand everything, to have everything mapped and figured out. Mystery is the natural state of existence. Deep-sea organisms face a challenge that's unique to their environment, finding a mate in the vast darkness. Some species have evolved remarkable solutions. Male anglerfish, for example, are much smaller than females and have evolved to become permanent parasites. When a male finds a female, he bites onto her and gradually fuses with her body, his circulatory system joining with hers. He becomes essentially an appendage, providing sperm when needed but otherwise just carried along. Multiple males can attach to a single female. This might sound grotesque, but it's actually an elegant solution to an impossible problem. In the enormous, dark ocean, the chance of encountering a potential mate is vanishingly small. By permanently fusing with a female when found, the male ensures reproductive success. It's an extreme adaptation, but it illustrates a principle: life finds ways to overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles. When we face challenges that seem impossible, we can remember the anglerfish. Solutions exist, even if they require complete reimagining of how things should work. The ocean floor accumulates sediment at rates we can barely perceive. In the deep ocean, far from land, red clay accumulates at a rate of perhaps 1 millimeter per 1,000 years. This means the top centimeter of sediment represents 10,000 years of accumulation. A meter of sediment represents millions of years. The sediment acts as a geological archive, preserving microfossils, volcanic ash, meteorite fragments, and chemical traces that allow scientists to reconstruct Earth's history. Each layer tells a story of the time when it was deposited. Layers with more calcium carbonate indicate warm periods when shelled organisms thrived. Layers with volcanic ash mark eruptions. Iridium-rich layers mark the asteroid impact that killed the dinosaurs. The deep ocean floor is a library, each layer a page in a book that chronicles Earth's changes over hundreds of millions of years. We too are creating archives, not in sediment but in memory, in photographs, in the traces we leave. Each day is a layer, slowly accumulating into the story of a life. Some fish in the deep ocean have evolved to be almost invisible. Silvery scales reflect what little light exists, making them hard to see. Some species have light-producing organs on their undersides that match the faint light filtering from above, eliminating their silhouette. This camouflage, called counterillumination, requires the fish to constantly adjust the intensity of their bioluminescence to match the changing light levels as they move up and down in the water column. The effort these fish expend to remain unseen speaks to the importance of avoiding predators in the deep ocean. Energy is precious, yet they invest it in invisibility. Sometimes we too need to become less visible, to withdraw, to not draw attention to ourselves. This isn't cowardice or avoidance. It's a legitimate strategy for conservation of energy, for avoiding unnecessary conflict, for maintaining our peace. There's wisdom in knowing when to shine and when to fade into the background. The Mediterranean Sea, while not as deep as the major oceans, contains a feature called the Messinian salinity crisis in its geological history. About 6 million years ago, the Mediterranean was cut off from the Atlantic Ocean and largely dried up, becoming a vast salt flat far below sea level. This state persisted for hundreds of thousands of years until tectonic movements reopened the connection to the Atlantic. When this happened, water from the Atlantic poured into the Mediterranean basin in what must have been one of the most spectacular waterfalls in Earth's history, a cascade that might have flowed for decades or centuries before the basin refilled. This dramatic history is now hidden beneath the peaceful Mediterranean waters. The crisis is over, resolved millions of years before humans existed. This geological perspective offers comfort. The crises in our own lives, the periods when everything seems dried up and barren, are temporary. Eventually, conditions change. Water returns. Life flourishes again. No state, no matter how difficult, lasts forever. In the deep ocean, some organisms have evolved to be completely transparent. Certain jellyfish, some fish larvae, various zooplankton, all essentially invisible in the water. Their transparency is almost perfect, making them virtually undetectable even when viewed directly. This is achieved by eliminating pigments, by matching the refractive index of their tissues to that of seawater, by removing anything that might scatter light. This transparency feels like a metaphor for a certain kind of spiritual openness, becoming so clear, so free of opacity and obstruction, that life flows through you without resistance. This is the state described in various meditation traditions, becoming transparent to experience, letting thoughts and feelings arise and pass without clinging to them, without resisting them. pure awareness, clear as deep ocean water, undisturbed by the creatures moving through it. The ocean has rhythms beyond the daily and seasonal. Tides are the most obvious, the rise and fall of water levels caused by the gravitational pull of the moon and sun. But there are other, longer rhythms. The Pacific Decadal Oscillation is a pattern of ocean temperature fluctuations that shifts every 20 to 30 years. The Atlantic Multi-Decadal Oscillation operates on similar timescales. These long-term patterns affect weather, fish populations, and ecosystems across vast regions. These multi-decadal rhythms remind us that some patterns in our lives operate on timescales longer than we're comfortable with. Career arcs, relationship cycles, personal development, these unfold over years or decades. We can't judge our progress based on days or weeks. Sometimes we need the perspective of years to see the pattern, to understand where we are in the larger cycle. Patience is required, the same patience the ocean demonstrates as it cycles through its long, slow rhythms. At the bottom of the deepest trenches, the pressure is so extreme that water itself behaves differently. The hydrogen bonds between water molecules are compressed, changing the structure of liquid water in subtle ways. This water is denser than normal water, yet it's still liquid, still capable of supporting life. Even at these extremes, the fundamental properties that make water essential for life persist. This resilience of water, its ability to remain itself even under crushing pressure, is instructive. We too have essential qualities that persist regardless of external pressure. Our core values, our fundamental nature, the qualities that make us who we are, these don't disappear under stress. They might be compressed, harder to access, but they remain. When the pressure eases, we return to our natural state, just as water does. The deep ocean is remarkably diverse in its geology. While we often imagine it as a flat, featureless plain, the reality is far more complex. There are underwater volcanoes called seamounts, thousands of them scattered across the ocean floor. Some rise thousands of meters from the seafloor but don't breach the surface. These seamounts create areas of increased biological productivity. Currents flowing over them bring nutrients upward, supporting communities of fish and invertebrates that cluster around the seamount like terrestrial animals around a waterhole. These underwater mountains, invisible from the surface, remind us that there's always more than meets the eye. The visible surface rarely tells the whole story. Beneath any calm appearance, there might be mountains, valleys, complex landscapes of challenge and opportunity. We can't judge the depth of anyone's experience, including our own, by surface appearances alone. The ocean continues, as it always has, as it always will. Your breathing continues, slower now, deeper, matching the rhythm of imagined waves. Your body rests, heavy and relaxed, supported completely. Your mind drifts, thoughts becoming less distinct, more dreamlike, consciousness beginning to shift into sleep. The deep ocean holds you in its ancient peace. All the facts, all the details, all the wonders we've explored, these fade now into a simple felt sense of vastness, of depth, of calm. You don't need to remember any of this. It's here, in the deep ocean, waiting for you whenever you return. Sleep now, knowing that the ocean continues its existence whether you're aware of it or not. The currents flow. The organisms drift and hunt and rest. The sediment slowly accumulates. The pressure maintains its equilibrium. The darkness is complete and peaceful. You're part of all this, connected to the ocean by the water in your cells, by the oxygen you breathe, by the ancient evolutionary history you share with every living thing. You're not separate from the ocean. You are a temporary, beautiful expression of the same forces that create waves, that move currents, that sustain life in the deepest trenches. Rest in this connection. Rest in this knowledge. Rest in the vast, patient peace of deep water. The ocean will be here tomorrow, and the day after, and for millions of years beyond. It's not going anywhere. Neither is its peace. Neither is its capacity to hold you, to calm you, to remind you of your place in the larger story of life on Earth. Sleep now. The deep ocean whispers, you are enough. You are home. All is well. You're still here, floating in this peaceful space between waking and dreaming. The ocean welcomes you deeper still, into territories of the mind where facts become feelings, where knowledge dissolves into pure awareness. Let's continue our journey through the calming depths. The ocean floor is covered with nodules called polymetallic or manganese nodules. These are potato-sized lumps of metal ores that form incredibly slowly on the abyssal plains, growing at a rate of perhaps 1 millimeter per million years. They're composed primarily of manganese and iron, with traces of nickel, copper, cobalt, and rare earth elements. They form around a nucleus, perhaps a shark tooth or a piece of shell, with minerals precipitating out of seawater in concentric layers over millions of years. These nodules represent time made tangible. An object the size of your fist might be 50 million years old, older than the Alps, older than the lineage of recognizable modern animals. They rest on the seafloor in vast fields, millions upon millions of them, growing with patience beyond human comprehension. When we feel impatient with our own growth, our own progress, we can remember these nodules. Transformation doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes the most valuable things are built layer by layer, millennium by millennium, through slow accumulation rather than dramatic change. The ocean contains rivers within itself. The Gulf Stream is perhaps the most famous, carrying warm water from the tropics toward the North Atlantic at a rate of about 6.5 feet per second. This may not sound fast, but the volume is staggering, more than 100 times the flow of all the world's rivers combined. The Gulf Stream is so powerful, so distinct from surrounding waters, that it has defined edges. Early sailors knew where the Gulf Stream was because the water temperature and color changed dramatically at its boundaries. These ocean rivers flow without banks, without channels, held in place only by the interaction of temperature, salinity, the Earth's rotation, and the pull of the wind. They demonstrate that structure doesn't always require rigid boundaries. Form can exist within fluidity. We can have direction, purpose, momentum in our lives without rigidity, without fixed constraints. Like the Gulf Stream, we can flow with strength and clarity while remaining adaptable, responsive to the conditions around us. Beneath the visible surface, the ocean teems with microscopic life that forms the base of all marine food webs. Phytoplankton, tiny photosynthetic organisms, most just single cells, drift in the sunlit upper layers, turning sunlight into organic matter. These organisms are so numerous that they color the ocean, visible from space in blooms that swirl and shift with currents. Despite their invisibility to the naked eye, their collective impact is enormous. They produce roughly half of Earth's oxygen, absorb massive amounts of carbon dioxide, and provide food for everything from microscopic zooplankton to the largest whales. These tiny organisms, each one invisible, together sustain the planet's life systems. The parallel to human society is clear. Individual actions might seem insignificant, but collectively they shape reality. Every small choice, every moment of kindness, every effort toward healing, these are like individual phytoplankton cells, tiny but essential to the larger system. We don't need to be large or powerful to matter. Our small, consistent contributions to the whole are enough. The ocean has places where light creates unexpected phenomena. Sun rays penetrating the surface create shafts of light called crepuscular rays, or underwater, sometimes called God rays. These occur when sunlight passes through gaps in clouds or waves, creating visible beams as light scatters off particles in the water. Divers describe these light shafts as cathedral-like, spiritual, otherworldly. They're temporary, shifting with the movement of water and sun, never exactly the same twice. These fleeting columns of light remind us that beauty exists in transience. The most moving experiences are often the ones we can't hold on to, can't photograph adequately, can't recreate. They exist for a moment and then they're gone, leaving only memory and a sense of having witnessed something sacred. Our lives are full of such moments if we're present enough to notice them, small graces that appear and dissolve like sunlight through moving water. Deep-sea gigantism is a phenomenon where species living in the deep ocean grow much larger than their shallow water relatives. Giant isopods can reach lengths of over 16 inches, compared to their terrestrial relatives, pill bugs, that are typically less than an inch long. Giant squid can reach lengths of 40 feet or more. Giant amphipods, giant sea spiders, giant tube worms, the pattern repeats across many species. Scientists aren't entirely certain why this gigantism occurs. Theories include the advantage of larger body size in retaining heat in cold water, the benefit of larger bodies in surviving between infrequent meals, and the absence of certain size constraints that exist in shallower, more competitive environments. Whatever the cause, these giants of the deep move with the same slow deliberation as their smaller relatives, just at a larger scale. They remind us that size isn't about speed or aggression. Sometimes size simply means greater capacity, more room for patience, more ability to wait, more reserves to draw upon during difficult times. The ocean floor near hydrothermal vents hosts bacteria that have evolved to use chemosynthesis rather than photosynthesis. These bacteria oxidize hydrogen sulfide, a chemical that's toxic to most life, and use the energy from this reaction to build organic molecules. They form the base of the vent ecosystems, supporting tube worms, clams, and other organisms in the complete absence of sunlight. These bacteria can survive temperatures up to around 120 degrees Celsius, far higher than most life can tolerate. The existence of chemosynthetic life expanded our definition of what's possible. Before hydrothermal vents were discovered, All known ecosystems ultimately depended on photosynthesis. The vent communities prove that life's ingenuity exceeds our assumptions. What we think of as essential might not be. What we think of as impossible might simply be something we haven't encountered yet. This opens possibilities in our own lives. The solutions we need might exist outside the frameworks we're familiar with. We might find nourishment in unexpected places, energy from sources we hadn't considered. The salinity of the ocean varies slightly in different regions. Areas with high evaporation and low rainfall, like the Red Sea, have higher salinity. Areas with lots of rainfall and river input, like near the Amazon River mouth, have lower salinity. These differences in salt content affect the density of seawater, which in turn affects ocean circulation. Water seeks its own level of density, flowing to where it naturally belongs. This can serve as a metaphor for finding our place in the world. We don't need to force ourselves into environments where we don't fit. Like water of a particular density, we can seek the places where we naturally belong, where our specific qualities are suited to the conditions. There's no judgment in this. Fresh water isn't better than salt water. They're simply different, each with their own proper place in the system. You don't need to be other than what you are. You just need to find where you naturally fit. The ocean contains sounds we're only beginning to understand. The bloop was an ultra-low frequency underwater sound detected by the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration in 1997. It was loud enough to be detected by sensors over 5,000 kilometers apart. Initially, scientists thought it might be from an unknown large marine animal, but it's now believed to have been the sound of ice breaking off Antarctic glaciers. The ocean carries many such mysterious sounds, whistles, booms, grinding noises, some identified, others still unknown. This sonic landscape, mostly inaudible to human ears without special equipment, reminds us that we're surrounded by realities we can't perceive. Our senses show us only a narrow slice of what exists. Infrared light, ultrasonic sound, magnetic fields, these are all real, all present, but invisible to us without instruments. Similarly, there are aspects of our own inner experience that remain hidden even from ourselves. We don't need to understand everything about ourselves to be whole. Mystery is not a problem to solve, but a reality to accept. The ocean's chemistry includes dissolved gases, oxygen and carbon dioxide most importantly, but also nitrogen and trace amounts of many others. The solubility of gases in water increases with pressure and decreases with temperature. This is why deep, cold water holds more dissolved oxygen than warm, shallow water. It's also why the ocean can absorb enormous amounts of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, acting as a crucial buffer in Earth's climate system. The ocean has absorbed roughly 30% of the carbon dioxide released by human activities since the Industrial Revolution. This absorption has slowed climate change, but at a cost. The ocean is becoming more acidic as carbon dioxide reacts with seawater to form carbonic acid. This acidification affects organisms that build shells or skeletons from calcium carbonate. The ocean's capacity to buffer and absorb isn't infinite. Even vast systems have limits. This teaches us about boundaries, about the importance of respecting the carrying capacity of systems, whether ecological, social, or personal. In the open ocean, far from land, many animals undertake vertical migrations that bring them from deep water to near the surface and back again. The lanternfish, one of the most abundant vertebrates on Earth, spends its days in the twilight zone, hundreds of meters deep. At night, it rises to feed in the more productive surface waters, then descends again before dawn. This daily commute might cover distances of several hundred meters each way, equivalent to a human walking several miles uphill every morning and evening. These vertical migrants are following the movement of food, taking advantage of the rich feeding in surface waters while hiding from visual predators in the deep during the day. This daily rhythm, synchronized across billions of individuals, represents one of the largest movements of biomass on Earth. It reminds us that movement between different states, activity and rest, engagement and retreat, surface living and deep dwelling, is natural and necessary. We need both the surface and the depth, both the light and the darkness, in regular cycles. The ocean contains features called seamounts that serve as hotspots of biodiversity. These underwater mountains create upwelling currents that bring nutrients from the depths, supporting dense communities of fish, corals, and invertebrates. Some seamounts are so remote, so isolated, that they've been called the Galapagos of the deep, places where unique species evolve in isolation, found nowhere else on Earth. These isolated peaks remind us that constraint and limitation can foster creativity and uniqueness. The organisms on remote seamounts, cut off from the wider ocean by distance and depth, have evolved in their own directions, developing characteristics found nowhere else. Similarly, the limitations in our own lives, of time, resources, abilities, can push us toward unique solutions, distinctive expressions of who we are. Our constraints don't diminish us. They shape us into something that couldn't exist otherwise. Beneath the ocean, tectonic plates are constantly in motion. The Pacific Ring of Fire is a zone where multiple tectonic plates meet, creating a horseshoe of volcanic and seismic activity that includes many deep ocean trenches. Earthquakes are common along these plate boundaries. The ocean floor trembles and shifts, though these movements are rarely noticed at the surface unless they're large enough to generate tsunamis. This constant subtle movement beneath the apparent stability reminds us that stillness and motion coexist. The ocean surface can be calm while the floor beneath is shifting. We can appear still while processing deep internal changes. Transformation is often invisible from the outside. The most profound changes might not be apparent until long after they've begun. The ocean's surface tension creates a distinct environment right at the air-water interface. This thin layer, called the neuston, is inhabited by specialized organisms that live their entire lives at the boundary between water and air. Some insects skate across the surface, supported by surface tension. Floating cnidarians like the Portuguese man-o'-war hang from the surface, part of their body in air, part submerged. Even some bacteria specialize in this boundary zone, exploiting the unique chemistry where two elements meet. This interface between realms is a place of unique possibility. Neither fully water nor fully air, it's something else, a place where different rules apply, where organisms can access resources from both worlds. In our lives, We often exist at boundaries, between work and home, between rest and activity, between different roles and identities. These boundary states can be uncomfortable, but they're also where the most interesting possibilities exist. At the interface, we have access to multiple worlds. Deep beneath the ocean, in sediments and rocks, pressure and temperature create diamonds. These diamonds, formed from carbon-rich materials under extreme conditions, occasionally make their way to the surface through volcanic activity. Marine diamonds have been found in seafloor sediments, evidence of deep earth processes playing out beneath the waves. They're small, often industrial grade rather than gem quality, but they're diamonds nonetheless, carbon transformed by pressure into its hardest form. This transformation of carbon into diamond mirrors processes in our own lives. Pressure, difficulty, challenge, these can transform us into stronger, more resilient versions of ourselves. Not immediately, not comfortably, but gradually, through sustained pressure over time, we can become harder to break, more brilliant, more valuable. The difficulties we endure aren't meaningless. They're potentially transformative, given enough time and the right conditions. The Arctic Ocean, the smallest and shallowest of the world's oceans, is covered by sea ice that grows in winter and shrinks in summer. This ice is a dynamic environment, constantly forming, melting, moving with currents and winds. Polynyas, areas of open water surrounded by ice, remain ice-free throughout the winter due to upwelling warm water or strong currents. These areas are crucial for Arctic wildlife, providing breathing holes for seals and whales, feeding areas for seabirds, and access to light for phytoplankton beneath the ice. These persistent openings in the ice, these places that refuse to freeze over, can inspire us. Even in the coldest, most difficult conditions, there can be openings, places where life persists, where breathing is possible. We don't need the entire ocean to be ice-free. We just need enough open water to survive, to access what we need. Sometimes one polynya is enough. The ocean floor is scored with scars from icebergs that scoured the bottom during ice ages. These iceberg scour marks, found at depths of several hundred meters, show where massive icebergs dragged across the seafloor as they moved with currents and winds. Some of these marks are hundreds of kilometers long, giant scratches in the geological record. They tell stories of climate very different from today's, when ice extended much farther toward the equator than it does now. These ancient scars remind us that even the deepest places bear marks of what they've endured. The ocean floor isn't pristine and unmarked. It's scarred, changed, shaped by its history. We too carry marks of what we've been through. These marks aren't flaws. They're evidence of survival, proof that we've endured conditions that once seemed impossible to weather. Our scars, like iceberg tracks on the seafloor, are part of our story, part of what makes us unique. The ocean contains vast fields of underwater sand dunes, formed by currents flowing across the seafloor. These dunes can be meters high and hundreds of meters long, rippled and shaped exactly like desert dunes but formed by water rather than wind. They migrate slowly over years and decades, pushed by the persistent flow of bottom currents. Organisms adapt to the shifting landscape, burrowing into the dunes or moving with them as they drift. These underwater dunes illustrate that even the seafloor isn't static. Even the ground beneath the ocean is in motion, albeit slowly. This can be comforting when our own foundations feel unstable. Perhaps perfect stability doesn't exist. Perhaps everything is always in motion, always shifting, and that's not a problem but simply the nature of reality. We can learn to live on shifting ground, to be comfortable with constant subtle change, to move with the dunes rather than expecting them to hold still. Certain areas of the ocean are particularly rich in marine life. The Grand Banks off Newfoundland, the Patagonian Shelf, the waters around Iceland, these were historically some of the world's most productive fishing grounds. The richness comes from upwelling, where deep, nutrient-rich water rises to the surface, often where currents interact with underwater topography. These nutrients fuel phytoplankton blooms, which support zooplankton, which support fish, which support larger predators, entire food webs built on the foundation of rising deep water. This upwelling, this rising of the deep to nourish the surface, mirrors processes in our psychological lives. The insights, the resources, the wisdom we need often come from our own depths, from the unconscious mind rising to awareness, from forgotten memories surfacing when needed. We don't need to import everything from outside ourselves. We have inner resources, deep wells of knowledge and capability that can rise when conditions are right. Creating conditions for this upwelling, through rest, reflection, meditation, sleep, is one of the most valuable things we can do. The ocean is home to some of Earth's oldest living organisms. Glass sponges in the Antarctic can live for thousands of years, their silica skeletons building up slowly over millennia. Some colonies of black coral are over 4,000 years old, older than the pyramids, older than written language. These organisms have been filtering water, capturing food particles, growing imperceptibly, since before recorded human history began. Their longevity comes partly from their environment, cold, stable, unchanging, and partly from their nature. They don't hurry. They don't waste energy. They exist in states of minimal metabolism, taking what they need and no more, persisting through patience rather than aggression. In a world obsessed with speed and productivity, these ancient organisms model an alternative, slow living as a path to persistence across centuries. The ocean contains valleys as grand as any on land. The Mariana Trench, the deepest point in Earth's oceans, is a crescent-shaped scar in the western Pacific, over 2,500 kilometers long and an average of 70 kilometers wide. If Mount Everest were placed in the deepest part of the Mariana Trench, its peak would still be over 2 kilometers underwater. This profound depth is almost impossible to visualize, a gulf of darkness and pressure beyond human experience without technological assistance. Yet even here, in the deepest place on Earth, life exists. Amphipods, sea cucumbers, and even fish live in the Challenger Deep, the deepest part of the trench. They demonstrate that no environment is too extreme for life to find a foothold. If life can thrive in the most hostile environment Earth offers, then perhaps we too can find ways to thrive regardless of our circumstances. The human spirit, like life itself, is remarkably resilient, capable of adapting to conditions we once thought would break us. The ocean is filled with sounds that serve as navigation and communication. Dolphins use echolocation, sending out clicks and listening for the echoes to build a sonic picture of their environment. They can distinguish between different types of fish, different objects, even detect a shark buried under sand. Some researchers believe dolphins' echolocation is so sophisticated that they might be able to see inside other animals, detecting pregnancy, tumors, or injuries through sound. This ability to perceive the hidden through sound is almost like a superpower. It reminds us that different ways of sensing and knowing are possible. We tend to privilege visual information, but sound, touch, intuition, emotion, these are all valid ways of understanding our environment. Sometimes when we can't see our way forward, we might navigate by other senses, trusting the echoes we receive, building a picture from indirect information. The midnight zone of the ocean, between 1,000 and 4,000 meters, is where many fish have evolved tubular eyes that point upward. These eyes are specialized for detecting the faint silhouettes of prey against the dim light filtering from above. The barrel eye fish has a transparent head that allows its tubular eyes to rotate, looking forward when it needs to eat or upward when it's scanning for prey. This extreme specialization means the fish can only see in one direction at a time, but what it sees in that direction, it sees with remarkable clarity. This specialization mirrors a truth about human attention. We can't focus on everything at once. When we try to attend to multiple things simultaneously, we see none of them clearly. But when we narrow our focus, when we point our attention in a single direction like tubular eyes pointing upward, we can perceive with remarkable acuity. The key is choosing where to look, accepting that in looking one direction, we're necessarily not looking in others. This isn't a limitation. It's the nature of attention itself. This connection means you can never truly be alone. You're part of the ocean, part of the earth, part of the vast unfolding story of life in this universe. Your existence matters. Your presence has meaning. The waves you create, the effects of your actions, your kindness, your presence in the lives of others, these ripple outward in ways you may never fully see, but they're real nonetheless. As we come to the end of this journey, I want to thank you for your trust, for your willingness to descend into these depths with me, for your openness to this experience. It's been an honor to guide you through these waters, to share these wonders, to witness your journey toward rest. If you're still awake, hearing these words, that's perfectly fine. Sleep comes in its own time, on its own schedule. You can't force it, but you've created the conditions for it. You've given your nervous system permission to rest. You've reminded your body of its connection to ancient rhythms. You've turned your attention away from surface concerns and toward deeper peace. These things matter. Whether sleep comes in the next moment or the next hour, you've done good work tonight in caring for yourself this way. And if you've already drifted into sleep, if you're hearing these words only in the periphery of dreams, then you've succeeded perfectly. Sleep well, rest deeply, and know that the ocean's peace stays with you through the night and into tomorrow. The sun will rise again on the ocean's surface. Waves will catch the light and sparkle. Life will continue in all its forms, from the microscopic to the immense. The tides will rise and fall, pulled by the moon's fateful gravity. The great currents will flow on their ancient paths. In the deep ocean, our deep ocean, the one we've explored together, will continue its dark, patient, eternal rest. You can rest too. You've earned it. You deserve it. Let yourself sink now, all the way down, into sleep as deep as the Mariana Trench, as peaceful as the abyssal plains, as dark and quiet and safe as the deepest waters on earth. The journey is complete. You've arrived at the destination you've been seeking. Here, at last, is rest. Here is peace. Here is home. Thank you for traveling with me. May you sleep deeply, dream peacefully, and wake refreshed. The ocean holds you still, and all is well. Good night.